Hi, I'm Anna. Welcome back to Books on the Go. I hope you're well. I'm here today. I'm so behind in all my videos that I wasn't sure what to film because I haven't done a May wrap-up. I haven't done a book haul, and I have bought some books in the last month, which has been fun, and I'm now stopping again because I'm still trying to read my TBR, and that has been really satisfying, so I don't want to let go of that project. But I haven't filmed, my sort of June TBR, and we're halfway through June, so it's all gone completely off the rails. Today I thought I would do the books that are coming up on the podcast, because that's a mix of a couple that I've read recently and a couple that I'm about to read, and so that will kind of bring us up to date. And of course you can always go back, if you sort of look over the podcast, you can see, sort of track what I have been reading. I've read a couple beyond that as well, and I've been reading for Pride Month, and I did my Pride Month video, so I feel as if I'll sort of cover most of the bases and I'll forget a few books from, I think we might let May go now. So a couple of books that we might miss, that we'll just have to let that go. So this is what is coming up on Books on the Go podcast soon, and I'll see if I can get them into order. I don't know if I can actually. So first is How Much of These Hills is Gold by Pam Zhang, and this is a debut novel. I heard about it, I think, on Mercy's Bookish Musings and Simon Savage. I think they've both raved about it. I know Simon has, and it was one of the books that surprised him. So I picked it up. Also, the absolutely gorgeous cover. So look at this. I don't know if you can see the gold dots on this cover. So this was one of the books in my book haul recently, and I heard Pam Zhang speaking about the fact that her book tour has been cancelled because of lockdown. And one of the things that she feels a bit sad about is that because bookstores have been closed as well, she's worried that people might miss out on going in and just seeing this cover, because whilst people can still buy things online, they're not necessarily getting the beauty of this book, and it really is sort of enticing. But other than that, I didn't know what to expect. It's a debut novel, and it's a Western, or it's a new take on a Western, I should say, and set in America, in California, and it's about the gold rush, but the protagonists are a Chinese immigrant family, and mainly the two siblings. So their names are Lucy and Sam, but I didn't know what to expect, and I've come to this without having any background in reading Westerns or country and Westerns, or that whole genre. And I haven't avoided it so much as it just hasn't really been a feature in my reading up to date. And so probably you could, if you had that deep background, and I think Kendra on Reading Women has read a lot more of that, and so you can come to this book and appreciate it on a whole new level, in the sense that it's subverting that genre. I've come to it with none of those expectations, I suppose, and I was drawn in by the plot, I think by the engaging characters really, and the writing that gives you this sense of warmth, in the sense that she cares about her characters, and so that flows through. Sam and Lucy, you come to care about them. They're very original, distinct personalities, and they are in peril. So they start off, I think they're orphaned at the beginnings. Their father's died, and they're trying to find somewhere to bury him. And so immediately it sort of hooks you in, because it's quite a surprising, situation that they've found themselves in. And then it's a story of survival and adventure, but very quiet adventure. So it's not, fast-paced novel. And she's spoken about how she deliberately wanted to slow down the typical sort of Western. And so it's one of those books that it's not like any book that I've read before, and that's one of the things I really liked about it, and it's hard to describe, but I thought the writing was incredibly assured and masterful, and really has a grip on you as you read. The words really stick to the page and the scenes come to life, and it keeps moving. Just when you think you've pinned it down, it will change, but in a good way. So yeah, I'm still, as you can see, I'm still sort of digesting. I still have to gather my thoughts together for this because I'll be talking about this with Amanda tomorrow. So I need to be a bit more organized in my mind as to what I liked about it, because as I say, it's hard to describe, but I've got a few flags there. So stay tuned for that episode. I'll be really interested to see if Amanda liked it too. So that's How Much of These Hills is Gold by C. Pam Zhang. And then we're doing a double tomorrow. So then Amanda and I are also discussing Cleanness by Garth Greenwell. So this is his follow-up to his big successful debut novel, What Belongs to You, which I just read a week or 2 weeks ago and really, really enjoyed. That's a small novel, but there's a lot to unpack and digest in that book. And this follows on. They're similar in tone and the same setting. So they're both set in Bulgaria. This is a collection of stories, but it seems to follow the same protagonist. So you could read it almost not dissimilar to a novel. So it's not a sort of collection of stories where you have to completely reset your mind with each story. It does sort of, one follows on from the other. And they're set in, he is a teacher who lives in Sofia in Bulgaria. He's gay. He has a lot of encounters and explicit sex scenes, I have to say, which is not a bad thing, but it was just something to know about going into the book, because it is, I wouldn't even say confronting actually, but it is there. It's definitely there, front and center of some of these stories. And that's really interesting. I think this would be a great book club book because there's so much to talk about. He's doing a lot in these stories, and the writing, as with What Belongs to You, is really lyrical and strong, and he just has a way of propelling you forward, even though these are, even though it's a literary style and long sentences, he somehow injects this sort of movement and energy into his prose, which I find really interesting. And the character, it's narrated in first person. So whilst you feel as if you know the protagonist, because he's really speaking to you from first person viewpoint, he almost hides things from himself or doesn't want. There are things that he's quite self-aware, but there are things that he doesn't sort of talk about, I suppose, that, to do with his personal history. And so it's really interesting. It makes you think. And yes, I'd love to know other people's reactions, and I'll be very interested to see how Amanda got on with this one. So that is Cleanness by Garth Greenwell. That's one of our Pride Month reads. Then we're doing Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami, and this is translated. It has 2 translators from the Japanese by Sam Brett and David Boyd, and it always unnerves me when there are 2 translators because I feel like the book must be really long. It is quite long. It's just over 400 pages. But this one just sounds very enticing. I bought it because Haruki Murakami has called it breathtaking, and he says on the back, "I can never forget the sense of pure astonishment I felt when I first read Breasts and Eggs." And I think it was Jacqueline on 6 Minutes for Me who recommended this, where I first heard about it. I don't know. I must say I don't like the title, and I don't know why, but Breasts and Eggs, I don't want that in a book title. It just doesn't work for me. And it also, I keep confusing it with breast milk and thinking it should be breasts. I don't know. The eggs and the milk, and it's not working. It might become clear as I read it how the title fits in. And I think the story is that it's about 2 sisters, and one of them comes to Tokyo. One of them lives in Tokyo, and then her sister comes to Tokyo because I think she's having breast enhancement surgery. So that does explain why, that breasts is the part of the title. And also with her is her 12-year-old daughter who's not speaking to her. So that's the setup. I can't tell you much more. I've just started reading it. It's a very engaging tone, very conversational, and, Tokyo setting, which is fun. So that should be good. It could be a good one for Women in Translation Month, which is August. However, as always, we're not quite in sync with reading things at the right time in the right months. But anyhow, we're doing that in the next couple of weeks. So that's Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami. And then Annie and I are reading The Nichol Boys by Colson, Whitehead. So I don't know if that needs much introduction. It was, I think, released last year, and it's his follow-up to The Underground Railroad, and it also has just won the Pulitzer Prize, which he won as well for The Underground Railroad. So an amazing achievement. And I read The Underground Railroad, really liked it, and thought it was very strong and very powerful and taught me a lot. And The Nichol Boys, I've been a bit daunted because the subject matter is quite harrowing. It's two boys who go to a reform school that treats them dreadfully. And so the subject matter is quite upsetting, I believe. So I've sort of avoided it for that reason. And on the other hand, knowing Colson Whitehead is such an amazing writer, I expect it to be brilliant. So it'll be interesting to see what the experience is of reading this one. It's not very long, so we'll see how that goes. Annie's been dying to read it, so we'll come to that in a couple of weeks as well. That's The Nichol Boys. I've heard nothing but rave reviews, I should add, so I just have to get over this apprehension that I have. Then Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Jiles. And I read, and I think we did it on the podcast, News of the World by Paulette Jiles, and really loved it. I read it when I was sick, and it was just a really comforting, lovely read. I thoroughly enjoyed it and was very happy to be in that world. Something about the tone, I think, and so I'm expecting to feel the same way because I think it's her writing more than anything else that really draws me in. So I'm expecting to really enjoy this. And again, I've heard, I think Sarah at South Seas Books, where I went last weekend when we were down south, and she said she absolutely loved this one. So very high expectations. The story is, let me think, it's March 1865. The war between the states is winding down. 23-year-old Simon has evaded military duty, but then following a brawl, he finds himself conscripted into the Confederate Army. And then luckily his talent with a fiddle gets him comparatively easy position in the regimental band. Then he's called to play for officers and their families. Can't help noticing the lovely Doris Mary Dillon. And then after the surrender, Simon and Doris go their separate ways. He will travel around Texas, but he cannot forget the fair Irish maiden and vows that someday he'll find her again. So this sounds like a war story and a love story mixed into one with some music as well. So I'll look forward to that one. And that's Simon the Fiddler. And then last but not least, a book that I'm not doing on Books on the Go, but with London Book Club Review podcast. And that is The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Lefteri. And this is, so the London Book Club Review, their premise of their podcast is it a good book club book? And they talk about books they've been reading in their book club. And this, I think, will be a good book club book because it's about a really important issue. So it's Syrian refugees who travel to the UK, and it's a couple, Nuri and Afra, his wife. They've had a very traumatic sort of series of events in Syria, and we meet them in England, but then we flash back to their time in Syria. It's a really important story, and it will move you, and it certainly by the end I was very moved and drawn in by the characters, but also I didn't actually love reading it, and I found it very sad and quite slow, but then I felt bad criticizing it because it's such a compassionate story, and she writes with great sensitivity. So it is, there's a lot to love about this book, and I think for that reason a book club would be great, because there's so much to talk about, there's lots of issues, but also, did you enjoy it? You know, how much do you need to enjoy it? And all those sort of questions. So I'm discussing that. I think tomorrow we're catching up, and then that will go live on, I think there's like a World Book Club Day or something like that. And this book has been chosen as the book club choice. So stay tuned for that one. I'll put the link down below, but that's the London Book Club Review podcast. So that's it in terms of what's coming up on the podcast, and podcasts indeed. And I'd love to know what you're reading, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.